Good morning to Wisdom TV, where we're sitting here chilly
with Dan
and Lee
in Florida.
Where it's cold this morning.
Oh, yeah, it's really cold. It's almost 60.
No, it's only 48.
No.
It's too cold for me.
Miss Lee, when you used to work in the zoo in Illinois, you would go out in the snow at 10 degrees and feed 200 animals and push the cart and break the ice, and now it's 60 degrees and you think you're dying.
But I was so much younger then. I'm older than that now.
Oh, you're not so wise anymore. No, you're not strong.
I'm more wise because
You're more wise
in where it's warmer.
Yeah, that's true. You're definitely more wise. But I don't know. I think I'm going to give you a box on that one.
Well, I need the
that
sun
you're
more
cold
than a box.
And it's 65. I don't know.
It's not 65.
So
I'm
anyway,
debating.
today what's the date?
Today's the 11th, and it's a shout out to all our veterans who have fought through the number of years to fight for our freedom, that we're able to do this show.
Yeah, the amazing thing, I've been studying about the Civil War. It's a very interesting thing. I'm getting more and more persuaded that Darwinism had a big effect on developing the Civil War. And particularly afterwards, we know clearly that Darwinism changed our country after the Civil War. But slavery, in the Lincoln-Douglas debates, were the debate between the Republican or the Whig, which was Lincoln, and Douglas, which was the Democrat. And Douglas was debating the idea, he was saying the idea, that the Bible taught that slavery was right. And Lincoln was arguing that they're not reading their Bibles right.
I remember hearing that quote, yeah.
And then what happened after that is just about that time, at just a few years before the Lincoln-Douglas, because the argument was always between the Bible, but you always treated your slaves good. That was the argument that the Democrats had. The Democrats said, well, we're to be benevolent and helpful and care. We care for these people. We really care. And Lincoln said, well, you're not to be your brother's keeper. You're not to keep your brother.
I just had that thought in my mind. Oh, were they doing the quote-unquote, you are your brother's keeper thing?
Yeah, and Democrats have always loved this phrase, you are your brother's keeper. But, it's interesting. It's one of those dumb box things. Your brother's keeper, that phrase, do you know where it comes from?
They think it comes from Cain and Abel, where Cain says, am I my brother's keeper?
It was a justification of a murderer for a purpose of covering up his murder.
Yeah,
am I my brother's keeper? It's a question. And never does the Bible teach
now, was he talking
that you are to keep someone.
Was he talking to God there when he
said,
am
he was talking.
So he's trying to tell God, what do you expect me to watch out for him?
I watch out for my brother. I'm his keeper. It's a rationalization, which is very much how slavery was rationalized, because it made people rich. I could work off of another man's labor.
Yeah.
I could steal his labor. And what the Declaration of Independence brought about was the idea that all men are created equal, and they have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And the pursuit of happiness did not mean that they had the right to do anything they want to, because later we developed laws and clearly showed that we had only the right to do good. But and the right to do evil. This is one of the big problems with the libertarians. They believe they have the right to do anything. They reinterpret the pursuit of happiness.
Well, somehow they think, from everything I've heard other people say and read and stuff, they think that you can do anything as long as it doesn't hurt anyone else. But you know what? No man is an island.
Yeah.
Everything you do affects other people in some way.
Everything evil you do hurts others as well as you. The problem is, how do you know what's good and evil? And that's where, without revelation, man is lost. And that's where our founding fathers got that. And the debate with Lincoln and Douglas was that. But what happened is the Democrats basically separated, which ran the South. They controlled the South. And they attacked the Union. They tried to break up the Union. And Lincoln first tried to hold the Union together. And then later he realized the issue is really slavery. A lot of people say, well, the purpose changed. Well, it changed because they began to realize this is the thing that is dividing the Union. Is man able to, should a man be able to keep his brother? Or should a man be able only to give and help his brother, not to keep?
Now, that doesn't mean, though, that you can't work for someone else. Every person does not have to have their own business or their own farm. Or you can work for someone else.
It's just like an employer. An employer is a person who has another person working for him, which is voluntary servitude. You're serving someone
because you say, okay,
voluntarily.
I will work for
I
you.
will work.
I accept the wages you're giving me.
And the 13th Amendment in our Constitution clearly points out that involuntary slavery is what, or involuntary servitude is what slavery is.
Okay.
Because it says slavery, and then it defines it, and then it defines also that someone can give up their ability to have voluntary servitude if they commit a crime. So you can't just do anything you want to according to the Constitution, according to the Declaration, according to the pursuit of happiness. You have the right to pursue good, never the right to pursue evil.
And according to the laws of each state and county and city and little
But there is
town.
a moral law that is above everything. And that's where our founding fathers clearly was able to bring that moral law into our sovereign people, which had the free exercise of their religion. Because in order to have absolute moral law, you have to have a God who is there. Mm-hmm. But that brings us to Proverbs, and we're just kind of off the track this morning.
That's because we're freezing.
Yes, maybe we're chattering. But we're reading in Proverbs 11, and we've chosen verse 24 through 26, which is the key is not to keep someone, but to help someone. And this verse kind of has to do with that, so let's just go on.
Okay, there is one who scatters and yet increases all the more, and there is one who withholds what is justly due, and yet it results only in want.
This is a very interesting concept. Who is the one who withholds what is justly due? How could you withhold what is justly due?
Well, I can think of two things just pop into my mind. First, if a parent withholds food from their child.
Okay. Does a child have a just due of food?
Well, God gives them to your care to, help them grow up.
So it would be evil.
It would be evil to hold
because
food.
Humans are created in the image of God and very valuable.
Right.
The most valuable thing, and ultimately so valuable that God in Genesis chapter 9 created government to punish good and further evil, or further punish good and
no,
or further good and punish evil.
evil.
Got that all dyslexic for there in my mind. But the idea is that government has the responsibility, the right, the purpose of furthering good and avenging evil.
Well, the second
and
thing
when you withhold from a child food,
right,
that's abuse.
That's
evil.
And
the civil government has the responsibility and the right to come in and deal with that.
I do.
Because you have limited government in family, you have limited government in business,
you
have
evil.
Limited government in civil government. The limited government has to do with everyone.
Well, think
the
about
father
a job
is the head
too,
of his house, but he's not unlimited.
A job too, where I don't know, it just came to my mind because when we had the farm, we had a lady that helped us come in and clean the house because I was busy working with the animals. And so if we said, if she did an hour's work and she charged me, she said, I'm going to charge you $25 for that hour of cleaning. And I came in and she'd done all the work and it looked nice, and I said, well, that's too bad, I'm only going to give you $10. Well, that is withholding what is justly due.
It's
because
true.
we agreed ahead of time I'd give her $25 for that cleaning job.
Yeah.
And then afterwards I said, too bad, I'm not giving you that
Well,
much.
another example, and I've seen this here in Florida done all the time. I have a good friend, it happens to him, his boss agreed to pay him so much. And at the end of the week, his boss says, well, I don't have the money right now. I'll pay you later.
Does later ever come?
Well, what's interesting, but the boss has the money to take a vacation. The boss has the money to buy a new car. The boss has the money to do everything, so he withholds
for his own personal pleasure.
Just payment.
Mm-hmm.
So that is as evil as you not even paying, to postpone the payment to someone you owe the wage to.
To satisfy your own personal pleasure.
That's
and
right.
Luxury or
so
whatever it is.
There's a very interesting thing, though. There is one who scatters and yet increases all the more. How do you scatter and increase all the more? Now we've seen how one who withholds what is due, yet he wants, and the reason he wants, because nobody wants to deal with him anymore. When you withhold what is due, nobody wants to do business with you. Nobody wants to be around you. You don't even take care of what's due, much less give.
Well, I'm just thinking the one who scatters. I just saw that in evidence this week, actually, here in our own personal lives, because you've been studying for a while to get tomatoes that we can grow in Florida that are bug and mold. There's a lot of problems with growing tomatoes here. And so you bought seeds and you planted them, which is kind of scattering them. And then what happened was the increase was so much that we had more than we had room to plant. So we were able to give to, the thing that was funny is there's two instances. We were able to give to a lady, an older lady, and she just was so appreciative of them. And out of this one little plant, she divided and got 5 plants. But then on the other hand, there's people that were too lazy to even take a plant you were giving them because they didn't want the work involved.
And that's where farming is a perfect example of that. Because in farming, God has created the universe with the seed in it. And if we will just mix our creativity with our labor into God's resources, things multiply by nature. That's why God commanded, the first commandment in the Bible is to be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, rule it, and subdue it. And the
subduing part is pulling the weeds.
That's part of it, and that's why I check my weeds. But we only have about a minute here left, and I wanted to go to the New Testament because Jesus in Luke 6:35 and 38 sums this verse up. In the New Testament, he said, be merciful just as your Father is merciful. God is very merciful to us in giving us a land, a soil, a nature. In other words, the plants, the animals, the air, the universe, that works to make everything fruitful. It's the nature of things. He says, do not judge lest you be judged. Do not condemn. In other words, don't sit around and say, well, I work harder than him. I do more than him. See, that's not the issue. He goes on and says, you will be condemned. If your purpose is condemning, you will get condemned. But he says, forgive and you will be forgiven. And then he goes to the most important verse probably in the New Testament, totally the reverse of all other religions. Give and it will be given to you, a good measure, pressed down and shaken together, running over. And that's the issue in Western civilization. By giving, we receive. The whole economic system is based on that. But we're out of time, and we'll have to deal with this in the next section.